Alt parameters.
Yes. So in the previous lesson, we learned the store procedures with input parameters.
Yeah.
Today, we will learn the store procedures with output parameters.
Yeah.
So first thing, let's recap the store procedures with input parameter, what it was like. So basically, store procedure with input parameter was a store procedure that accepts an input parameter, a value, and takes that value and uses that value inside the query, whatever the query is assigned to that store procedure, right?
Yeah.
Like if we see this store procedure, I guess this was with encryption. Okay, let's see this one. Okay, so if you look at this, this is how we declared the input parameters. And we took those and used them within the statement inside that store procedure, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so this input parameter, we take the value whenever we execute this store procedure. We provide a value for that parameter, and then the store procedure takes that value and puts that value inside the script that the store procedure is assigned, right? Like in this case, for example, where basically what the store procedure does is it selects everything from the employee table and filters the first name according to the login parameter and phone number according to the password parameter. Basically, whenever we provide these parameters, it takes the value and it puts the login to login. So basically, the value for the login will become the first name filter.
Yeah.
The value for the password will become the phone number filter.
Yeah.
Right? Like for example, if let's try to execute this store procedure. So for login, let's provide, say, Steven. This is the first name, right?
Yeah.
And then for the other phone number parameter, let's take this phone number and provide that. So now what happens is when I execute this, it will take this Steven, since this is the value for the login parameter, right?
Yeah.
It will take this value, Steven, and put it here. Replaces that login parameter with the value.
Okay.
And then it will take the phone number and will replace the password with that phone number that we provide. And then it executes this select statement with those provided values.
Yeah.
Right? And then you will see this information. So if I execute this, we should get the same result. You see?
Yeah.
So this was store procedure with an input parameter. Basically, you create the store procedure with input parameter just like any other store procedure. You say create procedure and then give the name of the procedure, and then you give the you define your parameters, the name of the parameter and the data type for that parameter. And if you have more than one parameter, you just define that with comma and then the next parameter, basically. And then, as usual, you say as, open, close the parentheses, and inside you will write your SQL statement, right? And then you put those parameters in whichever part of the statement you want accordingly. Okay. So basically what I'm saying is, okay, I want to select everything from the employees where the first name equals to this parameter and then the phone number equals to this parameter.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then when you create that and when you provide this, it will execute the same statement with these values.
Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, there's another way of, well, basically not another way of doing it, but if you want to, for example, say, if you want to replace these parameters, right? Since the order of the parameters we have in here is the first parameter is the login, and then the second parameter is the password.
Yeah.
It should be in the same order, right? That's why I first provided the first value Steven and then this, right?
Yeah.
But if I replace this and then try to execute this, it will not return me anything, because now basically what it's doing is it's taking the phone number and putting it, replacing it with the login parameter, and then taking this Steven and putting it instead of this password. That's why it's not returning me anything, because it's taking it in the same order as the parameters were defined. Because when we created the SOAP procedure, we defined the parameters in this order. First parameter will be the login, second will be the password. So whenever we provide the value, whatever the first value provide will go for the login, and then the second value will go for the password. Okay?
And we need to write varchar or integer, but how do we know that it's a varchar or integer before it pops out, like the result?
So if you look at this, I'll show you. Usually, there's an IntelliSense. It's called an IntelliSense in the Management Studio.
Oh, okay.
That it will, you see, once you type execute and then the name of the SOAP procedure and then hit space,
Yeah.
it will already show you what kind of parameters are being expected. You see, login, varchar, password, varchar.
Oh, yeah, here.
You see, this is called IntelliSense. IntelliSense is basically hint that Management Studio gives you about any object. Okay.
Yeah.
So now this means you now you know what parameter is of what data type.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For this, you have to just write the name and then hit space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was trying to tell you is, so okay, but how do we change the order of the parameters and still get the result correct? You can actually specifically tell the SQL Management Studio or SQL Server which parameter goes for which value. For example, if I execute this, it's not returning me anything, because basically it's switching the parameters now, right? This value is going for login and this value is going for password, which is incorrect, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what I can do is I can actually specify, like specifically tell the SQL Server, okay, this is the password parameter.
Yeah.
And this is the login parameter. You see?
Yeah.
When I'm trying to execute the SOAP procedure. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now it knows which parameter goes for which value goes for which parameter. So in this case, it does not matter in which order you provide the values.
Yeah.
Okay? As long as you specifically tell which parameter, which value belongs to which parameter.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we're basically saying, okay, so the password parameter should take this value, login parameter should take this value.
Yeah.
Okay? So you can basically specify the values for specific parameters by saying, typing the parameter name and saying it equals to the value that you're providing. So that way now SQL Server knows which value is referencing which parameter. Okay?
Yeah.
In this case, the order doesn't matter, since we already are specifically telling SQL Server which value goes for which parameter. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the recap for the input parameter store procedures.
Yeah.
Now there's second type of store procedures that are with output parameters. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's create the same store procedure, but this time we'll give it a different name because this procedure already exists. So now let me get rid of this part so that it will not confuse you.
Mm-hmm.
So I will give the store procedure a name, USB login out. This means with output parameter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
And the only difference is, like the first thing I want to tell you is what is the difference between the store procedure with an input and output parameter. Basically, as we just saw, the store procedure with an input parameter, it actually takes a value in and uses that value inside the statement, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's called an input parameter, because we are providing the value and it's taking it in.
Yeah.
Basically, it's input. Now the output parameter, what it does is it actually returns you a value. It outputs a parameter with a value. So whatever the result returns, it will store that value in an output parameter so that you can use that parameter in any other place, like in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That is the difference. So basically, input parameter takes a value in, output parameter gives a value out.
Out, yeah.
Okay? So now let's create this, and then I want this login to be an input parameter, but I want this password to be an output parameter. So for that, I should say it's output.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I'm defining the parameter, I say, okay, just like usual, I say add, and then the name of the parameter, and then the data type, and then I add this output, the word output, or you can simply say out. It doesn't matter, out or output. Okay. But the best practices is saying it completely, like output. Okay. So now what happens is it will take this and then puts out this.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now this is how we create the output parameter, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean the store procedure with the output parameter. So what we're saying is, okay, create the store procedure that's called user store procedure login out, and then this will be the input parameter because it does not have the word output. Okay.
Yeah.
And this password parameter will be the output parameter. Okay.
Yeah.
And since we have the output, basically what happens is it will, whenever we provide the value for this login parameter, it will take that value here and then execute this SQL statement and then set the result equal to this output parameter.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like what we're trying to do is, imagine now we don't have this part, right?
Yeah.
If I execute this with, say, this phone number, okay? I mean the first name, sorry.
Yeah.
Because this is first name, right? This is a simple select statement. If I execute this with this first name, it will give us this phone number, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say select distinct because we don't want 3 phone numbers at the same time.
Yeah.
So basically, it will no, like this is a simple select statement. With if I provide say this name for this login parameter, it will take this name and puts it here, and then it executes here, and then we get the phone number, right? Now what I want to do is I want to store this phone number somewhere so that I can use it in the future.
Yeah.
Okay. So for that, I can use this output parameter and then say, okay, return this phone number for me, right?
Yeah.
And store that inside this parameter. So that's why I say parameter equals to this phone number. Okay?
Yeah.
So now when I say password equals to phone number, what it does is it takes the input parameter, this one, right?
Yeah.
So for that, we provide a value, say Steven. It takes that and puts the Steven here, and then it executes the SQL statement, and it will get this phone number, and then this phone number comes and sits in this parameter password. Okay?
Yeah.
So the value for this parameter will become the result of this store procedure.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is we're basically storing the result of the store procedure inside this parameter.
Yeah.
Okay? And why do we need that? Because we might have some long functions that's coming along, and then we can use that value in those functions.
Yeah.
Or even when, for example, when you work with SSIS that we'll learn later, like integration tools, you can write some procedures, or you can run some SQL statements against a database where you want to get some value and pass that value to another component in that SSIS. Okay,
yeah.
That you'll see in the future when we learn that. But for now, just understand that the purpose of this output parameter is to store the result sets, the result value. Okay, in this case, this phone number. Okay.
Yeah.
Store this somewhere. Somewhere means this password parameter.
Yeah.
So you can use it for something.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the basic purpose of the output parameter. What output parameter does is it executes the statement inside the store procedure, and that store procedure will return a result, and that result will be stored or saved in this parameter. Okay?
Yeah.
So to do that, first thing you need to define the output parameter like this. Okay. So this will be the parameter that will take the result to itself. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you put the parameter name and then equals to this phone number in this case, meaning the phone number that we get will become this parameter's value.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have executed this. Now we have this store procedure, and now how do we retrieve that value outside from the store procedure? For that, we have to create another parameter that should take that value. Okay? So this password will throw out the value. This pass out parameter will catch that value. Okay? Basically, whatever the value this password throws out will come and sit in this parameter now. Okay? For that, you have to first declare the parameter. So how do you declare? You just say declare. This is basically a keyword to create a parameter. Like for procedures or tables, you use the word create.
Yeah.
For parameters, you use the word declare.
Yeah.
Okay, so this will create a parameter. And as usual, you give the parameter a name with the @ sign. And then the data type that it should receive. And it must be the same data type that this output parameter is throwing out. Okay? So this password output parameter is throwing out varchar20 data type. So this catching parameter, in this case, is the pass out parameter, who should catch the value, should also be able to catch the same data type. So that's why we're saying it's the same varchar20. Okay. And now when you execute the, first you declare it, and then now when you execute the store procedure, so you say just usual, execute, and then name of the store procedure, and then you provide the input parameter. Input parameter is the login, right?
Yeah.
In this case, we have to provide the first name. And then now since we have provided the input parameter, it will come and put that input parameter here and execute this statement, and this value comes out, and this password throws out this value, and now our newly declared variable, which is pass out, will catch that value. So for that, you say pass out should catch the output parameter. You can say out or output. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay. So now what's happening here is this output parameter is throwing out this phone number using this value that we provide, and then this pass out is catching this value.
Yeah.
Okay. And how do we test that? Basically, if you don't provide provide anything for this, I mean, if you don't provide this parameter in here, it will automatically become null. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you don't even provide this, it will also become null. To test that, I'm writing this simple statement. Basically, what I'm saying is if this pass out is null, then print pass out is null.
Yeah.
Else meaning if it's not null, print whatever the value for this pass out. Okay?
Yeah.
So now let's execute this first. So now it's saying it is completed successfully, but I think if we execute this now, I don't think it will work, but let's see. Yeah, because you have to execute it together.
Together, yeah.
Now if I execute it together, now it's giving this value. So basically what's happening is this store procedure is taking this Steven inside, it's putting it here, and then finding this phone number for Steven, right? If you execute this, let me put this outside here so that you will see what exactly is happening.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're taking this Steven because we're providing that, and it's putting it here, and then it's executing this statement with that value, and now we're getting this phone number, right?
Yeah.
Now this phone number is getting stored in this password parameter, and it's being thrown out, right? And this is throwing out this phone number now, password, and now we declared this password out parameter, and when we executed the store procedure, we said, okay, this password out should catch the output parameter, and output parameter is this one, this password. Yeah. So now when we execute this, what's happening is it's putting the Steven in, taking this phone number, passing it here, this is passing it out to this one.
Yeah.
And after it's passing it out to this, we're saying, okay, if it's null, print null, else print the pass out.
Yeah.
After that, it's printing the value for this pass out. That's why we are getting the same phone number printed. You see?
Yeah.
So this is like some sort of multiple step process that's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
See? First thing what's happening is, we're providing the input parameter. Input parameter is coming and sitting here, here, and then this statement is getting executed, and then we have the result. Now this result is coming and sitting for this password, right? Now the password parameter is equal to this result, okay?
Yeah.
And now that password is throwing that result out, and then this parameter is catching it, and then we're basically printing this parameter's value here. Okay. So that's what's happening behind the scenes. And if we do that, it's printing the result for that. And you can actually use that like, for example, I can basically use that value in the next things, in whatever I want to do next. For example, instead of printing this, I can say, let's say, I will comment this out. I can actually remove this. Instead of printing it, I can say, okay, now get the phone number for Steven, and then put that phone number again here, yeah? Because now this is this, and then if I execute the whole thing now, we should get this result. You see?
Yeah.
This is like, it's very useful if you know how to use it. It's like very useful. Now, since we're doing this with just one table, it doesn't seem that useful. It's like basically we could have gotten this result by just saying where first name equals to Steven, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine we have say this was what table was this? This is the employees table, right? Employees. I can basically take the employees and employee details. Let's say what do we have in departments? I'm trying to show you the use cases for this. All from departments 1. Let's see what do we have here. Okay, we don't have anything here. Okay, let's create another store procedure that uses our orders table. Okay, because in this case, it's not obvious that since we're using the same table in the store procedure and we're using that in here, it's not obvious that it's how useful this is. But imagine this situation where you have multiple tables and you want to get one value from one table and then pass that value to another table to get the value from the other table, right?
Yeah.
And this process should become automatic. Okay. So basically you can create this store procedure and all these functions that do it at the same time for you. Okay. So now let's create that. Okay.